Well, I am joined now by my fellow Sportsnaut friend, Jason Burgos, who is the editor of Sportsnaut. Hello and welcome.
Thank you. I mean, absolute pleasure to be here. I'm really excited to talk to you.
You know, you do such a phenomenal job editing the site. The site continues to grow. I mean, while I have somebody who works on the platform along with me here, I just kind of want to take a minute to brag on all the incredible work that you guys have done. You show up in searches all the time whenever I'm looking for the latest sports news, and I just feel like the platform continues to grow. Do you get that sense too?
Yeah, and I'm fairly new to the team. I mean, a lot of the credit goes to the people that have been there already, and they've been doing a phenomenal job. And like you just said, it nailed it. I mean, it's a site that's growing. It's a site that's popping up, and it's just a site that's only going to get more familiar to people because there is so much good content that comes out of it.
Yeah, it really is good. I know that you focus specifically on MMA, UFC, boxing. So let's have a conversation there. And admittedly, I'm kind of a rookie in this department when it comes to specifically MMA and UFC. But let's start with an area that I am familiar with, which is Floyd Mayweather kind of running his mouth, doing what he does, and has now challenged an NFL team to take on Antonio Brown. We know Antonio Brown's history. If you're a sports fan, it would make sense that these two are friends down in Miami, and that, you know, he's describing Antonio Brown as a lost soul or an NFL player that's got a lot of potential. I saw that you just wrote something that posted to Sportsnaut about this. Kind of give us the nuts and bolts of what Floyd Mayweather is essentially asking of NFL teams.
So pretty much he's, as always, Floyd is making a bet that he knows he can win. And that is offering teams, because he's a friend of Antonio Brown. They both are living in Miami and living their best lives there. And he, you know, Antonio Brown, for fans maybe that aren't familiar with the NFL, has had some issues. He has some personal baggage. It's having problems getting signed by the league. So he offered any team a bet where if they signed him, kept him, gave him a fair shake, kept him on the team, and if he stayed on the team and was a contributor for the entire season, they will pay him and Floyd, because he said $20 million. But if Antonio Brown is Antonio Brown and gets himself jettisoned like he did from the Patriots and the Buccaneers, Floyd will pay that team $20 million.
Do you see this going anywhere?
No. I mean, Floyd is he maybe not the greatest person in the world, but as a businessman, he's brilliant. He's making a bet that he knows no one's going to take, and it makes him look great. Like, oh, look at, he's trying to help Antonio. He's willing to put $20 million down for a friend. What a great guy. You know, maybe there's something in Antonio we're not getting. He knows how to play the PR game, but no team is going to take that, because in the end, Antonio Brown at this point of his career is not a $20 million a year wide receiver. So even at his best level, he's not going to make that kind of money. But if he is good, he is a guy who can be likable with teammates. No team wants to take that risk of having to pay him $20 million in a difficult salary cap to do that. So no, Floyd's going to look great, and no one's going to take him up on the offer.
You know, you mentioned his business prowess, Jason. So help me understand what is about to happen on May 14th here. How legitimate is this with Floyd deciding to pick up another fight?
I think you segued into a perfect. It's just business. It's really not a fight. There's not any kind of real competitiveness to it. This fight he's doing in Dubai, which I believe this is the second time he's done this now, it's an exhibition, because Floyd is not going to risk losing that all on the end of his record. He's fighting Don Moore, who's a former sparring partner, only has like 18 fights, not a guy, kind of like an also-ran at this point. No disrespect to him, undefeated. But it seems like a kind of thing where he's like, he has a business arrangement with this hotel in Dubai, which he's going to be fighting on a helipad. They probably told him, hey, Floyd, you want to do another fight? You got anybody you know that you can fight? I know this guy named Don, and he used to be my sparring partner, and here's a great way I can make him $2 million and still beat him up and look amazing. And that's what Floyd is all about, looking amazing and making money, and he's really good at it.
So there's really no downside here for him against an opponent that by all means he knows well and should beat pretty handily.
Yeah, and that's why he made an exhibition. That's why he even made the Logan Paul fight an exhibition, because obviously he should have, you know, on paper, he beat Logan Paul. It was going to be easy. But even then, he's smart enough to know that anything can happen in the fight game, and you can get hit with a punch and you can lose. So if he wasn't even willing to take that risk against Logan, he's definitely not going to take it a guy who has actual skill and actually has one fight. So no, it's just pure money grab. He's going to make probably a bunch of tens of millions of dollars guaranteed, and to look good and beat up a guy he's already beaten up. And anyway, help out a friend. So again, Floyd's looking good no matter what.
I seem to be sensing a theme here. You mentioned Logan Paul. I'm really fascinated by Jake Paul, Logan Paul, and the evolution of them in this particular space. Oscar De La Hoya, very complimentary of Jake Paul. Are they the exception to the rule? What are we seeing here with these two? And what do you make of Oscar De La Hoya's comments?
I think they are an exception to the rule on that. I think they're the only ones that can they have legitimate athleticism, and they've proven it. Logan really isn't the level of boxer that Jake has proven. Logan's really not that good. That said, for anyone that watched him at WrestleMania, I mean, extremely impressive. This guy's a great athlete. So they're the only people that are great athletes and also have that media cachet to bring an audience with them and then make money. And it seemed on the surface like it's actually a real sporting event. That said, Jake Paul's legitimate. And on a level, I agree with Oscar and him saying he's the real deal. I don't know if I'd agree with Oscar saying that he can be a champion soon. But again, going back to the theme here of business, Oscar's a businessman. He knows as a promoter, one day I might work with this kid. I'd like to work with this kid. He can make me millions of dollars. So why be like Dana White and crap all over him and stuff like that? Because Dana White doesn't have to work with him. I might work with this guy. I can make millions. Let me have a good relationship. Let me give him some compliments. Let me throw some compliments that are maybe deserved his way. And a lot of what he said is true outside of being a champion. But Jake's legit, and if he keeps sticking with it, he's for real. He can be entertaining for the next 5 years.
And not to mention their global reach alone seems to have such incredible value in this sport right now. A couple of years ago, the conversation with boxing was, that it was essentially dying, that its heyday is long behind it. And it's continued to find ways to evolve through really innovative promoters. You look at DAZN, you look at what Oscar's, trying to do. And with Jake, can you really understate what the value is in having that kind of global reach and being able to connect with a completely different audience?
And that's what makes him special, in that he had an audience already. He already built a pseudo empire with the YouTube stuff, social media, the acting, the other things. He did both of them together, honestly. But not many people can take an audience and make it travel. Not many people can be a singer and then go make a movie and everybody's going to go buy tickets, vice versa, being a movie star. He took his audience with them and then added people. I didn't know anything about Jake Paul, but covering combat sports, him fighting MMA fighters, you got to learn about him to cover the job. And he gained new fans, like him or not. He gained new fans that people either watched him, a lot like Floyd, to either watch him win or watch him lose. And it is, people hate on him, but he, marketing wise, is a genius. At like 25, extremely brilliant. He knows how to play the game, go viral. And in 2022, that's what you need more than anything, than any marketing, to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it sound silly or hyperbolic to say that regardless of how talented he is, his natural ability, that he could be a guy who is transcendent in the sport because of that reason right there, to figure out a way to pull boxing into the present? Yeah.
And because a sad example is, I covering MMA for a long time, and you'll have these elite fighters in MMA, world-class, best in the world, and they don't necessarily sell tickets. But Nate Diaz, good fighter, but not an elite fighter, is very popular. Those kind of things. This is the age we live in. Like, being the best doesn't necessarily make you the most money. And he understands about marketing himself, building himself up, making himself worth watching. And if he can be entertaining, like Conor McGregor became a superstar because he built himself up, marketed himself, and then he knocked people the hell out. So he was good and can talk. Jake's doing the same thing. He's knocking people out and can talk. And in this age, that's the quality that makes a superstar more than anything. That ability to mix entertainment kind of on in and out of the ring.
I do want to get to a preview of UFC 274, but let's start with the 273 recap. What were some of your major takeaways, including what might be next for Alexander Volkanovski?
For Volkanovski, I guess it's kind of same old. He's the best fighter on the planet, not named Kamaru Usman. I mean, he just proved it once again. He was a huge favorite against Chan Sung Jung. You know, he dominated him, and even tweeted during the show, he kind of just needed a finish just to prove, you know, I can be a finisher too. Because like we were just talking about, like getting knockouts is what sells you. That's what helps you grow. It's a tough thing. There really isn't, outside of a Max Holloway fight at featherweight, there's not a clear great next fight. Everybody's either lost behind them or they've got one win. And I know there's the contingent of Max fans that want to see that, but part of me isn't excited to see a third fight of a guy who lost twice already. Granted, close fights, you know, controversial, maybe the third fight, but still, it's missing something. Personally, if whoever wins between the lightweight title fight at 274, I wouldn't be against if Volkanovski went up and fought. I mean, he has cleared out the division. He's done it all. There's not a lot left other than another fight against a guy he can beat a third time. I wouldn't be against seeing him move up to lightweight and see if he could be a champ like many other great fighters.
How realistic do you think a move like that would be?
Very realistic, because Gaethje, again, it's sort of the similar kind of thing. Outside of this fight, there's not a ton of clear contenders. Like welterweight has a good line of contenders kind of coming through, and heavyweight and stuff like that. Lightweight after this fight isn't quite as clear, unless because Conor can just stroll in and get a title shot whenever he wants. But that's an interesting fight. If Charles can beat Gaethje, a former interim champion, he is a pound for pound talent. It's an interesting fight. This really well-rounded pound for pound talent versus another well-rounded pound for pound talent from the division below. UFC's been doing champ fights, super fights galore for like the last 5 or 6 years. It's right in their wheelhouse. It's kind of, if there's not a better option, Conor doesn't come back for that fight, that's probably the most marketable fight they would have at the lightweight championship division. What
were some of your other takeaways from 273?
Without a doubt, it's Khamzat. Khamzat is just a machine right now. I mean, like for our site, he's doing, like we have a next fight article, is doing really well because people are fascinated by him. He's sort of mysterious, yet not at all. He's just, and a lot of his detractors will look at that fight and probably go, oh, see, he's not that great. He didn't destroy him. Great. He didn't destroy an elite fighter. Crazy. Yeah, that's what happens when you're at the elite level. You can't destroy everybody. But nonetheless, he beat a top fighter. He did something that proved something, that he went through the resistance, serious resistance, and was the better fighter late. He was the smarter. That kid is scary. Outside of that, I mean, the Sterling, you got to give him credit. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a win to remember, but he still won. All the people that doubted him, he still hung with Peter Yan, who's an elite fighter, a pound for pound level fighter. And he won. I mean, you can't take it away from him. And for me, those are probably the more notable standouts to me. But everybody's going to leave 273, and they're going to be talking about Chimaev.
So with Chimaev, what is the next step in his evolution?
It's just probably experience, because what was so great about the win against Gilbert was, okay, this guy's big, he's strong, he can wrestle. We kind of all knew that that's what we were expecting the fight to be. Instead, we got to see all these other elements of his abilities that kind of fill in the gaps that we thought he might have, of if he can be an elite guy that can be Kamaru Usman. We weren't sure if he can strike at elite level. He went in there and struck for 3 rounds with a very good striker. We weren't sure if he can take punches. He was tough enough. He got hit 119 times, was bloodied, cut up, and was the better guy at the end and fought. Does he have the fight IQ when the things are going tough? Can he, have a plan B, a plan C? He did that. He learned. He made mistakes in the fight and adjusted in the fight. He did all the things people wondered about him. So it really is kind of the sky's the limit. We saw it. It's just about getting experience. It's just getting to that scary point of a Habib and certain guys like that, where he's not making the mistakes. He's not doing the stupid things like trying to knock people out for the sake of entertainment, just going there and dissecting people and getting them out of it like Kamaru Usman, Volkanovski are doing.
I feel like fighting fans' attention spans are becoming smaller and smaller. I mean, you mentioned the quality of what we saw at 273. Do you think that a large percentage of fighting fans understand, that nuance of a quality fight? Or is there now just a greater appetite than ever for, watching somebody just dominate somebody else?
I think it's weird. Like, professional wrestling and MMA, I think, have a really good crossover, and the fan bases are very similar in that there is this diehard fan base that just loves great wrestling and a great match, an hour match one night. There's this fan base that loves the soap opera side. And in MMA, there's a side that you'll have that audience where somebody will get taken down, do all the technical things to get back to their feet, and they'll start clapping, they'll start cheering. And then there's those people that if someone isn't bashing the other guy in the head, and if this woman has another one down and dominating her technique, boo, boring, I fight, somebody bleed. It's a weird thing. The fan base, there's certainly a segment that get it, and then there's a segment that does it. And usually that's also diehard and main and like casual. The casuals just want blood. They want to see the smashing, and then that's it. And they'll complain about it, and then the diehards will appreciate it. So it's the weird balance. I think any fan base, there's complainers in even entertainment, whatever fan base, just it is what it is.
And looking ahead to 274, I mean, what can we expect at UFC 274?
It's a really good card. The fascinating thing about you have these two title fights at the top, but you have this sort of end of an era, a passing of the torch. It's a lot of old school guys kind of going at it. You got Shogun facing Ovin Sepru. That's a fun fight, but Berisha probably should have retired maybe a year or two ago, but he's still hanging. You got Don Cerrone and Joe Loza, another couple of gray beards that are still going at it, but they're entertaining fighters. But it's a very good card, a lot of entertaining fights, a lot of a sleeper fight like Brandon Royval versus Matt Schnell's a fantastic flyweight fight that I would tell everyone to go watch. But at the top, when you have Justin Gaethje, the man I call Mr. Violence, the king of cage violence, you really can't miss a Justin Gaethje fight. You have to watch it. And Gaethje, for you casuals out there that just want blood, that's your guy. And then for the diehards that like technique, Rose Namajunas, you can't get better than Rose Namajunas. Technically one of the best boxers in the game. She's in a classic striker versus grappler, someone that beat her, rematch, revenge fight. It's everything for any kind of fan, everything you want.
All right, let's see. Anything else here? How about did you hit on Tony Ferguson yet against Michael Chandler and the pressure there because of those recent losses to really kind of step up and almost have something of a redemptive story here?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one for both because I believe Tony's on a 3-fight losing streak and Chandler's on a 2-fight. And then the assumption would be, okay, Tony needs to win. And if he doesn't win, maybe his UFC's career over. And that's completely fair. But there's an element, I think, of like those diehards that get it. Like Tony's been around a while. I think he's 37, 38 now. A lot of miles, a lot of tough fights. If he lost, I think we've all come to the understanding he's past his prime, almost expected. Chandler's the tough one. This guy was just in a title fight. He was the big signing from Bellator, one of the greatest fighters in Bellator history. He still has prime years left. He hasn't hit that falling off the table point like Tony probably has. If he lost 3 in a row, that puts him in a tough spot. He's making a whole lot of money. Luckily for him, he's exciting, but I almost feel the pressure is on Chandler. If he really wants to make history, become that UFC champion, he's got to win this fight. For Tony, his time as tried being champion is long over. But for Chandler, if he really wants to reach that goal, he needs to win this fight. Otherwise, he's never going to be a UFC champion.
You know, Jason, before I let you go, as you look at this from a 30,000-foot view, UFC events that are incredible, MMA fighters that are really entertaining and surprising everyone. I mean, how good is it to be a fighting fan right now with some of the talent that we're seeing?
And it's across the board because like this idea of like the term combat sports wasn't a thing like in the early 2000s. It's a thing now. Like you have MMA, you have boxing, you have something like say like one championship where they'll have Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA, grappling all on one show. You have jiu-jitsu, like grappling tournaments are kind of becoming a thing with like, you know, high rollers and flow grappling and submission underground. Like combat sports as a whole, we have more of it than ever. And then even within it, in MMA, you have a Bellator One Championship, PFL, Combate. You know, boxing has all these various promotions, various promoters doing a lot of big things. So as a fight fan, it really is it's a golden age in terms of content and options more than ever.
Man, and at one point we thought that there might not be another golden age, and now we find ourselves for a fan of combat sports right in the middle of a really fascinating and incredible time. Jason Burgos, thank you so much for being with us, editor at Sportsnaut. We look forward to reading your stuff on the site.
Thank you for having me.